Meghan Markle's shocking humiliation in Geneva finally proves that she has just gone mad.
Is Meghan Markle still a global draw, or was she ever really? Or has her public fascination started fading faster than her team expected?
Meghan Markle is stunningly oblivious to her own hypocrisy, and that is definitely beginning to damage her in the eyes of the public and, more importantly, really, the eyes of the media.
So, Meghan's certainly trying to recreate kind of these royal moments, and you've actually seen a real royal in action. And
you're putting profit over the privacy of your own daughter. So just zip it. Zip it with your faux politician act.
When Meghan Markle talks about herself, it's like that she is her own biggest fan. She acts like she knows the public can't wait to hear this story, and it's the greatest story that's ever been told.
She didn't stay to soak in the applause. She didn't stop to smile for extra photos. She didn't linger around shaking hands or pretending to enjoy the atmosphere. The second the speech wrapped up, Meghan Markle spun around and moved fast like somebody trying to escape a scene before people noticed what was really happening. And once you look closely at the footage from Geneva, once you notice the tiny details hiding in plain sight, the entire situation starts looking completely different than the polished image they tried so hard to sell. This was supposed to be huge. This was supposed to look like a global humanitarian triumph, a powerful international appearance that would remind the world she belonged on the same stage as political leaders, diplomats, and iconic public figures. Geneva is not some random backdrop. This is the home of the World Health Organization, one of the biggest diplomatic centers on Earth, a city tied to world affairs.
Nancy Sidley pointed it out. This was the moment, the major defeat on her face when she realized that no one had bothered to show up for what was a catastrophic speech, a hypocritical speech, a speech which blows out of the water. Prince William's jaw pointed out she was assigned to a bus stop. Look at that. Look at in the red circle. So actually, the woman who everyone's saying is there to watch was actually just trying to get home. Meghan's mole pointed out that even the Sussex squaddies couldn't be bothered to go to Geneva to support Meghan Markle, and as J.E. May quite rightly added, take away the staff and media required to be there for work, and you'll be left with the flagpole. And of course, the
global policy and serious international conversations. Everything about the trip screamed importance, prestige, and carefully crafted image management. But then reality hit hard. Because where did this grand speech actually happen? Not inside some packed convention hall overflowing with supporters. Not in front of giant cheering crowds, waving signs and cameras. No, it happened right beside a city bus stop. A real bus stop sitting out in public while regular people carried on with their day like absolutely nothing historic was happening around them. And that detail changed everything. You could see the setup from a mile away too. Crowd barriers were lined up as if organizers expected massive crowds to gather. The whole thing looked staged for dramatic television shots. Expensive clothes, polished makeup, luxury branding, security, camera angles, all carefully lined up to create the image of a major public figure arriving for a world-changing moment. The Armani outfit was perfectly selected. The cameras were positioned. Every single angle looked designed for headlines and glossy social media clips.
This does raise a really interesting point. As Resting Dollface said, nobody's there. But look, let's come to the security implications. Nancy Sidley, the Sussex squad, is claiming the lack of crowds was due to security, thus saying the streets and sidewalks were closed off to build a perimeter around Meghan. But as she says, when you look at the video, there are people driving and walking by. There were also a lot of tourists taking pictures of the big chair behind Meghan. There's a street with cars behind her, no crowds, people walking by, not caring. Nobody cares about what Meghan Markle had to say. She posts her own kids online. And New York Vicky, I think, really got the mood of this one right by suggesting that Meghan Markle is the antithesis of the icon that she thinks she is. She is the grandiose narcissist whose displays of self-worship are now and always have been farcical. And she zoomed in on the faces of those watching.
But standing behind those barriers was not an emotional sea of supporters. Instead, there was a woman casually holding shopping bags while checking the time, probably wondering if her bus was late. That image alone completely shattered the fantasy they were trying to build. You've got this heavily produced international appearance happening right next to everyday commuters who looked more focused on getting home than listening to the speech unfolding in front of them. Then came the cyclist, and honestly, that moment said more than any headline ever could. The guy rides up slowly on his bicycle, notices the scene, pauses for a second and squints like he's trying to figure out what all the fuss is about. For a brief moment, it almost feels like the cameras expect him to stop in awe or recognize the importance of what's happening. But instead, he looks at Meghan for maybe a few seconds, shrugs his shoulders like he's completely unimpressed, and rides away without a second thought, just gone.
And for Meghan, this appearance is really important. It's extremely important strategically for her brand because ever since Meghan left royal life, she and Prince Harry have been trying to reposition themselves as these global humanitarian figures, influential public voices, like these international thought leaders, like their thoughts would like to lead the world.
She has failed massively. There were zero crowds for this event. In fact, most people who walked by that we saw from Meghan Markle's own feed kind of sort of ignored her. And the reality is, I think that's most of the world. Most of the world does not take Meghan Markle seriously, and it's really beginning to show and damage her reputation.
Yeah, totally. And you watch, she'll change a little bit too. She'll see what Catherine's doing, but she doesn't understand what she's doing and why what she's doing is a thing that makes her repellent, her personality type. So, and just watching her, you can watch her stuff without the sound on. Either one of them, you go.
Completely unbothered. That tiny moment cut through the entire illusion like a knife. And it didn't stop there. Two women standing behind her at a traffic light ended up stealing attention without even trying. Meghan was in the middle of speaking about heartbreaking global issues, delivering lines meant to sound emotional and powerful. But the second the pedestrian light turned green, those women immediately walked off without hesitation. They didn't pause dramatically. They didn't stop to listen to the end of the sentence. They didn't even glance back. They simply crossed the street and disappeared out of frame like they had somewhere more important to be. That visual was brutal.
You need to watch closely. Let's just give her the benefit of the doubt and think she's trying to do the one tear left eye. She's trying to get some emotion into the end of her speech, but it's curious. Look.
Where people can barely agree on basic facts. That beyond politics or party lines, beyond demographics, incomes, or ideologies, beyond race or religion, we could all universally agree on one thing. We want our children to be safe. Let our children look back at this moment and let them feel proud of us, that we chose something better for them and for us all. Thank you.
No, I know you're probably just quite taken by the fact that she's there and there's the people and the cars and everything behind her. But what about the nose? If you missed it, just look again.
We want our children to be safe. Let our children look back at this moment.
Very intriguing.
Because moments like that are impossible to fake away afterward. Public relations teams can edit headlines. Supporters online can spin narratives. But raw footage tells its own story, and the background in that video spoke volumes. And maybe the most awkward part of all was what tourists nearby were actually paying attention to. They weren't photographing Meghan Markle. They weren't gathering around to capture this supposedly important humanitarian appearance. They were taking pictures of a massive chair sculpture sitting in the plaza behind her. A giant piece of public art became the real attraction, while the speech happened nearby. Think about how damaging that image really is. A sculpture, managed to attract more curiosity than the carefully staged public address standing just a few feet away. But even that wasn't the worst part, because the truly uncomfortable moment happened when the camera zoomed closer onto Meghan's face, and suddenly, the polished performance started cracking right in front of everybody. There's this split second in the footage that changes the whole atmosphere. You almost miss it unless you replay it carefully. Her expression shifts completely. 1 second, she's holding the public smile, maintaining the composed appearance expected from someone trying to project confidence and compassion. Then, suddenly, the smile slips for just a fraction of a second. And wow, the difference was intense. Her jaw tightens hard. Her eyes lose all warmth. The expression turns cold, frustrated, almost furious before she quickly forces the smile back into place again, like someone realizing the cameras are still rolling. That tiny flash lasted barely a moment, but people online immediately caught it and started replaying it over and over again. Body language commentators exploded over the clip too. They weren't describing somebody overwhelmed with emotion or sadness. They weren't saying she looked nervous or shy. What many viewers saw instead was anger being held back under extreme control. The kind of expression people make when reality doesn't match the image they expected to see. And once you notice that tension in her face, it becomes impossible to ignore through the rest of the speech. Even her delivery sounded different. The voice people expected to sound inspiring came across flat and strangely distant. The warmth felt missing. The rhythm felt mechanical. Instead of sounding naturally connected to the message, she sounded like somebody carefully reading lines from a prepared card while trying to maintain control over emotions bubbling underneath the surface. The entire atmosphere felt colder than intended, and social media noticed immediately. Even supporters started commenting on how tense she appeared. Some said her voice sounded angry. Others claimed she looked visibly irritated or shaky. One person even wrote that she appeared to be using every ounce of self-control just to hold the performance together in front of the cameras. Whether people agreed or disagreed with those reactions, the fact so many viewers picked up the same uncomfortable energy says a lot. Now imagine what was probably running through her head during that exact moment. This wasn't random timing. This week, this location, this appearance, all of it looked strategically planned down to the smallest detail. The backdrop, the serious global setting, the designer clothing, the emotional subject matter, the dramatic framing. Every piece seemed carefully constructed to create a powerful international image tied to compassion and leadership. It looked designed for a massive media moment, the kind of moment meant to dominate headlines and flood social platforms with praise and admiration. The kind of moment built to create comparisons with globally beloved humanitarian figures from the past. Everything about the presentation felt engineered for emotional impact. And then she looked up and saw reality instead. A cyclist leaving, pedestrians walking away, tourists focused on sculptures, commuters waiting for buses, everyday life continuing around her without stopping for the grand moment she appeared to expect. That contrast must have hit like a brick wall. But the ending of the speech might have been the most revealing part of all, because right at the final line, something happened that made the performance feel even more forced. Watch carefully when she starts talking about children during the closing words. Her hand suddenly rises toward her face. She touches the side of her nose. Then comes this quick little sniff, sharp and sudden, followed by a downward glance, like she's trying to signal emotion taking over the moment. Except the emotional build-up never really happened beforehand. There was no cracking voice leading into it, no visible tears forming naturally, no gradual emotional rise throughout the speech, no swelling intensity that made the sniffle feel genuine or connected to the moment. It appeared suddenly, almost like an afterthought inserted right at the ending because somebody remembered the scene needed more emotion for the cameras. And that's exactly why so many people reacted negatively to it. Online, to critics, it didn't feel spontaneous. It didn't feel authentic. It felt staged, like a last-second attempt to create the image of somebody becoming emotionally overwhelmed during an important humanitarian message. But because the build-up wasn't there, the gesture landed awkwardly instead of powerfully, almost like she remembered halfway through the closing sentence, "Oh wait, I'm supposed to look emotional right now." The backlash didn't just come from critics this time either. Even people trying to defend Meghan Markle were struggling to explain away what they had just watched in Geneva. One viewer called the emotional moment at the end of the speech a dead giveaway, while another bluntly said she looked like she was pretending to cry over words she probably didn't even write herself. And that comment opened the door to an even bigger controversy, because after the speech started spreading online, viewers with backgrounds in medicine, education, and academic research began pointing out similarities that raised serious questions. Several people claimed parts of Meghan's speech sounded extremely close to published ideas and language connected to Dr. Dana Suskind, a pediatric surgeon and academic from the University of Chicago. Geneva is a heavily French-speaking city, and Meghan herself has spoken publicly for years about studying French. 8 years, according to old interviews and past comments. Because of that, many people expected at least a small greeting in French during the appearance. Something simple, a respectful bonjour or merci, directed toward the audience and hosts. But it never came. Not a single French phrase during the speech. And online viewers immediately noticed the disconnect. Some questioned whether she had actually learned the language to the level she previously suggested, while others argued it came across like she simply didn't care enough to make the effort in front of a local audience. Either way, critics used the moment as another example of the growing gap between the polished image and the reality people believe they are seeing unfold. But what really fueled the online debate wasn't even the speech itself. Just hours before appearing on stage, Meghan uploaded an Instagram photo from inside her large walk-in closet. The image showed designer clothing surrounding her while her young daughter appeared near her feet during the moment captioned, "Mama's little helper." At first glance, some followers viewed it as harmless family content, but others quickly started criticizing the timing and presentation of the post, especially because journalist Tom Sykes later pointed out that the Armani outfit Meghan wore during the Geneva speech appeared clearly displayed in the background of the image. That observation changed how many people interpreted the post. Critics argued the photograph looked less like a candid parenting moment and more like carefully arranged branding content tied to fashion and image promotion. The expensive wardrobe visible behind her also became a talking point online, with viewers focusing on the contrast between luxury imagery and a speech centered around children, online harm, and social responsibility. The reactions online became intense fast. Some viewers described the image as uncomfortable, while others argued the staging felt overly curated and performative. The criticism grew even louder because it all happened only hours before Meghan appeared publicly speaking about protecting children online and criticizing harmful digital culture. For years, Archewell has been presented as the foundation powering Harry and Meghan's charitable and humanitarian efforts. It's the name attached to speeches, campaigns, interviews, and public appearances. But according to reports and commentary circulating online, Archewell Philanthropies has reportedly undergone major restructuring behind the scenes. Some people, digging through public records and online filings, began questioning the current status and scale of the organization itself. Strong accusations and dramatic language started flooding social media discussions, though many of those claims remain debated and heavily disputed online. Still, the overall criticism created a damaging perception problem, because from the outside, people started asking difficult questions. If Archewell is operating on a smaller scale than expected, if the speech itself sounded heavily influenced by outside academic work, and if Meghan's expertise on these subjects continues getting challenged online, then why do these massive public stages continue opening up for appearances like Geneva? That question sparked another major discussion involving public relations and media strategy. Because instead of seeing the appearance as a naturally demanded public invitation, driven by overwhelming audience interest, critics started framing it as a carefully managed publicity operation built through networking, branding, and aggressive image promotion. That's why the nearly empty pavement outside became such a damaging visual online. Critics argued that truly organic public enthusiasm usually creates visible energy, crowds, and spontaneous attention. But in Geneva, many viewers felt the opposite atmosphere came through the footage instead. Regular people walked past. Cyclists ignored the scene. Tourists focused on nearby landmarks instead of the speech itself. And for critics watching online, that contrast became the biggest symbol of the entire controversy. Because in their eyes, pay-to-play publicity can secure a stage, cameras, and headlines for a day, but it cannot force genuine public excitement from people who were never emotionally invested in the event to begin with. And it lays out the entire Dr. Tedros connection in a way that really pulls no punches at all. The head of the WHO has been under heavy fire for years, with critics lining up from all directions and pressure building in global diplomatic circles, like a storm that never really settles. The United States even pulled out at one point and cut funding, leaving a serious gap and a lot of tension hanging in the air. In those kinds of conditions, any public figure linked to that platform is already walking on shaky ground, and the reputation damage has been loud and constant. So when a famous-ish woman suddenly appears, ready to step into that space, willing to put money on the table for a stage and attach her name to the platform, it changes everything in an instant. From that angle, it doesn't even look complicated anymore. It looks like timing, opportunity, and mutual benefit colliding all at once in a very public way. It's not framed as pure advocacy anymore. It comes off as something much colder and more calculated. A transaction, plain and simple as some viewers describe it, where two struggling public images seem to lean on each other just to stay visible in the storm of criticism and attention that never really stopped swirling around them. But the comparison that really hit hardest wasn't even about Dr. Tedros at all. And that's where things start to get even more intense and uncomfortable to watch unfold. It came from a completely different moment, in a completely different country, involving a completely different royal figure. And according to critics, it's the one comparison that keeps echoing louder than anything else. And it was happening at the exact same time, which made it even more striking to observers following both stories closely. While Meghan was in Geneva, standing in what some described as a quiet and controlled public setting, near a bus stop-like backdrop, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, was in Italy, and the reaction there was on a completely different level entirely. The atmosphere in Italy reportedly turned electric in a way that felt almost uncontrollable. Town squares were packed tightly, shoulder to shoulder, with crowds stretching across open spaces like waves of excitement. People were leaning out of windows, calling out her name, shouting with joy and emotion filling the air. Children were chanting, "Katerina, Katerina," over and over again, their voices mixing with the noise of the crowd in a way that made the entire scene feel alive and overwhelming at the same time. School children were also shouting regalo, meaning gift, because they had prepared presents just to hand to her if they got the chance. One viewer described how emotional the moment felt, claiming Catherine looked visibly moved, even close to tears, as she saw how many people had gathered just for a glimpse of her presence. That kind of reaction is what many observers call organic affection, and they emphasize it loudly. It's not something you can script, not something you can force, and not something you can simply manufacture through strategy or publicity planning. According to supporters, it's the kind of response that just happens naturally when public sentiment aligns in a powerful way. And then comes the part that some say is almost too uncomfortable for critics to ignore. The outfit Meghan wore in Geneva quickly became part of the conversation. Fashion watchers and online commentators pointed out that it appeared strikingly similar in cut, silhouette, and overall styling to a suit Catherine had worn in Italy just days earlier. Same clean structure, same tailored shape, same neutral visual tone that made the comparison impossible for some viewers to unsee. Critics claimed it looked like a deliberate echo of style choices that had already been publicly celebrated elsewhere. Some even went further, suggesting it felt like she was copying not just a look, but a moment in time, trying to recreate a similar visual impact in a completely different setting. Whether intentional or not, the side-by-side comparisons spread fast online, and once they started circulating, they took on a life of their own. Catherine, in Italy, was reportedly pulling massive crowds, while Meghan in Geneva was described by commentators as being in a far smaller, more controlled environment. And in the world of online comparison, that contrast became the headline moment that people kept returning to over and over again. But the discussion didn't stop at appearances or crowds. It shifted into the substance of the speech itself. And that's where things got even more complicated. Some viewers who decided to dig deeper into the details claimed they started reviewing the names listed in memorial screens and public references connected to the event. They searched through publicly available information and began looking into individual cases tied to the broader message being presented. What they found, according to those claims, added layers of complexity that weren't being widely discussed in the main narrative. While the speech framed many of the tragedies as being linked to cyberbullying, online harm, and algorithm-driven pressure, critics pointed out that some of the documented cases involved drug overdoses and offline circumstances that were not directly tied to social media platforms. These were still heartbreaking situations, and no one disputes the pain experienced by the families involved. Parents and loved ones were left devastated, and their stories remain deeply emotional and tale in nature. But the criticism raised online focused on how those individual tragedies were grouped into a single, simplified narrative about platform responsibility. Some viewers argued that this created tension between lived reality and public messaging, especially when grieving families were placed into a broader policy conversation on stage. One commenter summed up their reaction by calling it deeply uncomfortable, suggesting that using personal tragedies in a larger argument felt ethically complicated. And then came another moment that people say stood out even more than the speech itself. After the event ended, something unusual reportedly happened, and observers were quick to notice it because it broke a pattern many had come to expect over the years. Normally, after public appearances, Meghan is often seen staying behind, engaging in conversation, taking group photos, and interacting with attendees and organizers. That's been a consistent pattern in previous events, where she remains visible, present, and engaged in post-speech moments. But this time, things unfolded differently. According to viewers and commentators, the moment her speech ended, she left quickly, without the usual lingering interactions, without group photos, and without extended engagement with the people who were present at the event. No handshakes captured on camera, no extended conversations shown, no group photo moment that typically marks the closing of such appearances. It was a fast exit that immediately caught attention online, and that's where speculation started building again, with viewers asking why someone who is usually very present in those moments would leave so abruptly this time. Some claimed it suggested discomfort, others said it looked like frustration, and others simply pointed out the contrast compared to her usual public behavior. Comment sections lit up with reactions, with some saying her team seemed to leave quickly, others claiming she looked visibly unsettled, and others focusing on the absence of Harry during the entire appearance. He wasn't seen beside her, wasn't in the photos, and wasn't part of the visible public moment in Geneva. That absence became another talking point, adding even more speculation into the mix about how the event was experienced behind the scenes. And now, the question being asked by some viewers is why this moment unfolded the way it did. Why step away so quickly from a global stage that usually invites visibility and attention? Why break from the pattern that has been consistent for years? Some say the answer is simple pressure, others say it's narrative fatigue, and others believe it's something entirely different, happening behind closed doors, that the public isn't being shown. One viewer joked that her team ran for the Alps, while another claimed she left looking visibly drained compared to how she arrived. Another commented that the confidence seen earlier in the day seemed to fade completely by the time she exited the event. And the most talked about detail of all remains Harry's absence from the visible moment entirely, which only added more fuel to ongoing speculation about distance, timing, and coordination during major appearances. She walked into Geneva alone, according to observers, and she left it the same way. And that's the detail people keep returning to again and again when discussing the event. Comment, like, and subscribe.